guys? Paulie Malignaggi here for Paulie TV. How's it going? We're in fight week, guys. It's one of the bigger fights of the year. Canelo Golovkin 3. Personally, I don't think it's that great of a fight, but to be honest with you, you guys know how it is. A popular fighter creates one of the big spectacles, and Canelo certainly is the most popular fighter of this generation, at least when it comes to North American standards. I don't know what you guys think of everything. Obviously, we're live. What do you think? What's your prediction for this week? You know, I've made some videos. I had the podcast on Pro Box with Roy Jones and Antonio Tarver, where we discussed this fight. And you know, while at first I was thinking that this would be easily a Canelo knockout, and he might be the first one to end up knocking out Golovkin, I then also started considering the other side of the coin, and that is that Canelo didn't look so motivated against Bivol. He sort of was very willing to accept a defeat and never really put himself at risk in order to try to win that fight. So I started to wonder if maybe you know, he's made too much money. He's just, you know, a little older. He doesn't want to put himself at risk or anything like that. So in terms of that, if that version of Canelo shows up, even a 40-year-old Golovkin could have a good chance at winning. I mean, I certainly think Golovkin is willing to get himself knocked out in order to get this win. I still question whether Canelo is willing to get himself knocked out in order to put himself at risk in order to get the win. He may not need to. Listen, it may be that the older version of Golovkin will be knocked out regardless, but I think Golovkin will put himself on the line full throttle. I probably angle towards Canelo to win the fight. I do think age is a big factor, and I believe that that's why the fight is happening now and not earlier. But nonetheless, what do you guys think? Do you think that Canelo may have motivation problems? Listen, I mean, is he going to be able to get up for for this third fight with Canelo? Is it the same? You know, everybody remembers the hype in the first two fights. Is it the same now with the third fight, especially with Canelo coming off of a loss and with Golovkin being 40 years old? Is the hype around it the same? Certainly, Fight Week in Vegas will be buzzing, but in comparison to what a usual Canelo fight or a usual big fight in boxing, or even the usual the first two Canelo and Golovkin fights, I mean, is the hype the same? What do you think? I don't really think Canelo fights very well off the back foot. He likes to take his time, and I think that, you know, if you give him that time, he can box you on the back foot, but he's still kind of planted. He's not like really a mover on the back foot. He kind of just likes to take his time, and if you don't attack him, he'll just kind of box with you and take his time. Like, if you give him that respect, like Caleb Plant did, like Billy Joe Saunders did, he'll get kind of comfortable. But he doesn't like to actually pressure you too much for the most part, but he doesn't like to go backwards either. He kind of likes to be in the middle of the ring and just control the ring. But I notice if you're busy, if you force a certain pace, he'll start to get uncomfortable, you know. But I that's why I was really impressed with the adjustment he made in the second Golovkin fight, because it wasn't an all-out pressure style that I had ever seen in Canelo before. I know he took the fight even to Lara because that fight necessitated him to bring pressure, but it wasn't in the way he walked down Golovkin. Now, could that be because Lara had great legs, so you can't just walk down Lara the way you walk down Golovkin? But nonetheless, the way he walked down Golovkin, in a fight that I still thought was close, because I thought Golovkin box started, you know, he made an adjustment that he gets no credit for, which was starting to box on the back foot. In a fight that I still thought was close, I still thought the adjustment was impressive, because I'd never seen Canelo do that to such an extent.
How could GGG pull out the win?
I think GGG pulls out the win by being GGG and fighting his fight. Now, what does that mean? Obviously, I think he needs to. I think what Canelo. One thing we've noticed that we've seen Canelo now that we've seen Canelo in so many fights is he's got trouble with jabbers. He's got trouble with straight punches. But GGG is a foot planted fighter. He's a set fighter. He's not a guy who can just throw a bunch of straight punches like Bivol can, or even like Lara can, and can throw Canelo off. Even Miguel Cotto's jab was bothering Canelo a lot in that fight. He has a lot of trouble with straight punches, the simple punches. So because they don't afford him time, they get there really fast. I don't think Golovkin is a straight punch kind of guy too much, aside from the jab and the occasional 1-2, right? He's a planted fighter. He's a set foot fighter. He's got his feet set, and that's when he's at his best. So I don't think he's going to be able to use that straight punch style quickly because he's not a quick guy. He plants his feet and he looks for power. But nonetheless, I like the way he was able to show us in the second fight that he can box on the back foot. Now, does that mean that they're going to give him a decision? I mean, probably not. I mean, honestly, I hate to say it, but if I'm Canelo, if I'm Golovkin and I box well again in this fight and I get robbed, I would probably want to punt one of the judges' heads off their shoulders. that's sitting ringside after that decision. But I honestly don't see him having the energy to be able to box this kind of fight anymore. He's 40 years old. I don't see him having the energy. If Canelo brings that enthusiasm and that brings that high octane pressure the way he did in the second fight. Now, that's kind of a flip side to the story, because Canelo looked very, very disinterested in the Bivol fight. Like, once he looked, interested at first. Everybody's interested at first, when you have energy and you can throw your big shots. But once he realized that he couldn't do anything to Bivol, and Bivol was catching, and then Bivol started catching and shooting, and started backing Canelo up, and he started just putting together combinations. Canelo looked completely disinterested with winning the fight. Like, he didn't give a crap about winning the fight or putting himself at risk. He was totally comfortable with giving up that fight and losing it. He never tried to win it again once he realized, like, I'm uncomfortable. I don't want to be uncomfortable to win the fight. So that's something to keep in mind, because can a 40-year-old Golovkin obviously make Canelo uncomfortable? That's a big question. I do think from a mental standpoint, Golovkin is very motivated. I feel like because of the way he was done wrong in these couple of fights, I think that he's got the bigger chip on his shoulder in this fight. Like, he's got to go and do something in his mind, because he feels like he was done wrong. While Canelo, on the other hand, again, he may just be losing that focus, losing that concentration, losing that desire. He's made a lot of money. He's got a fame, fortune. He's got all the things that we want in life, right? So it could be difficult for him to bite down if it does get tough. I think if it gets tough for Golovkin, he's going to keep trying to go, even if he has to get himself knocked out to try to win the fight. I think if it gets tough for Canelo, I question whether he would bite down and try to win the fight, even at the cost of getting himself knocked out, or at least at the cost of risking getting himself knocked out.
Who do you give the best chance of beating Canelo after? Like, realistically,
I'd love to see Benavidez. I used to think Demetrius Andrade, but I don't think Demetrius Andrade has been the same fighter for a while. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you what, it wouldn't shock me to see Canelo fight Demetrius Andrade after all this, because Andrade still has a shiny record, and he's definitely fading. I was at the Liam Williams fight. He didn't look good to me at all, and he even got buzzed in that fight. So I wouldn't be shocked if Canelo goes and fights Andrade at that point after beating Golovkin, because he's got the undefeated record, and you can kind of sell the name. But anybody who actually watches this sport knows that it's not the same Demetrius Andrade. Reflex fighters, they start to tail down earlier than everybody else, and Andrade has been a major reflex fighter, a terrific reflex fighter, a reflex fighter that I thought would have beaten Canelo earlier on, especially that now having seen the qualities and the deficiencies of Canelo even more blatantly, where he's not very good when somebody's busy, he's not very good when somebody's tricky, and Andrade is both busy and tricky in his prime. So I don't think it would have been a good fight for Canelo. I think he would have definitively beaten Canelo. But I think now, especially with the chin deficiencies Andrade seems to have, and he's slowing down, I wouldn't be shocked, actually, if Canelo goes after Andrade and says, see, I knocked him out now. What do you guys have to say? Even though guys like me who understand this crap, it's not the same Andrade. It's still a sellable fight, I think, with the old Andrade has on his record. This is Paulie malignaggi for Paulie TV. Are we going to put up that video of my breakdown? We're going to have that video up this week. We just did one. We're going to have a video up this week about my breakdown of this fight we're talking about. And, we got some good boxing coming up in October as well. We got the return of Lomachenko. In November, Bivol and Zurdo fight. Deontay Wilder returns in October. It's probably some things I'm forgetting. I'm working a BYB fight, bare knuckle, in London on the 16th of October as well. That's pretty fun, actually. You guys should check some of those fights out. Those are pretty fun. And that's it. So you'll be seeing more videos of me in the coming weeks. Thanks, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you think about this fight.